So today, we're going to dig into a business model that kind of flips the script on how we think about companies. It's called employee ownership. And the research suggests it might just be more productive, more resilient, and a whole lot more equitable. So let's dive in and see what this is really all about. And really, this whole conversation boils down to one simple, but honestly pretty profound question. When a company does well, when it succeeds, who actually deserves to get the rewards? The answer you give to that question pretty much shapes your entire view of the economy. All right, so to really get why this alternative model is so different, we first need to look at how things usually work. And there's a core tension baked right into the conventional setup. This tug of war between creating value and capturing profit. This really gets to the heart of the matter. It shows a fundamental disconnect. On one side, you have the actual workforce, the people showing up every day, using their skills, their labor, their new ideas to make the company succeed. They're the ones creating the value. But then on the other side, the profits from all that work, they're mostly captured by external owners, the shareholders, who are often completely disconnected from the day-to-day grind. And look, this isn't just some abstract economic theory. It has massive real-world consequences. This structure is basically designed to funnel wealth upwards. See, high earners can use their income to buy more capital, more stocks, more assets, which then generates even more income for them. And the cycle just keeps going. Researchers even have a fancy name for it, homoplutocratia. It's this idea where the very same people are at the top of both the labor income ladder and the capital income ladder, creating a new kind of economic elite. Okay, so if that's the problem, what's the fix? Well, the sources we're looking at point to two main ways to do employee ownership. They both try to realign who gets the benefits of a company's success. Let's take a look at how they actually work. So, first up, you've got the most common one in the US. It's called an Employee Stock Ownership Plan, or ESOP for short. The easiest way to think about an ESOP is to imagine it's a kind of retirement plan, a little like a 401k, but with a major twist. Instead of holding a bunch of different mutual funds, the plan's main asset is stock in the very company you work for. A trust is set up, and over your career, you build up shares, giving you a real ownership stake that you can cash out when you retire. Okay, now this is where things get really interesting. This is the financial superpower of the ESOP model. Get this, for certain types of companies, they're called S-Corps, if they are 100% employee-owned through an ESOP, their federal income tax bill is zero, nada, zilch. That is a massive financial advantage. It frees up a huge amount of cash that can be put right back into the business, used to pay down debt or shared with the employees. All right, so the second model is the worker cooperative, and this one is a different beast altogether. This isn't really set up as a retirement plan. It's a fundamentally different philosophy for how to run a business. The most important feature here isn't just the financial ownership, it's democratic control. The people doing the work literally own and govern the company. And here's the absolute core of it. In a worker co-op, your power, your say, and how the company is run isn't tied to your job title, your salary, or how long you've been there. It works on the purest principle of democracy, one person, one vote. Every single worker owner gets an equal voice in the big decisions that steer the company's future. Okay, so let's put these two side by side to really see the difference. An ESOP is legally a benefit plan, and that means worker control isn't actually guaranteed. A trustee often makes the big decisions. A co-op, on the other hand, is a type of business where that democratic, one-member, one-vote control is mandatory. And how do you share the profits? In an ESOP, it's through stock value, often tied to your salary. In a co-op, it's through what's called patronage dividends, which are based directly on your labor, like the hours you worked. So really, it's a choice between a very powerful financial retirement tool and a model based on pure workplace democracy. All right, so all of this theory is great, but what does it actually look like in the real world? Let's talk about a company you might have even shopped at, the grocery chain WinCo Foods. Their story really brings these ideas to life. This quote just nails the whole idea behind WinCo's model. They set up their ESOP decades ago, and get this, since 1985, their stock has grown at an average of 21.5% per year. That is not just a nice little bonus, that's a serious, powerful engine for creating real wealth. And this is where the numbers on a page become a real person's life story. I want you to meet Kathy Birch. She worked at WinCo for 27 years in jobs like stocking shelves and running a cash register. By the time she was getting ready to retire, she had built up nearly $1 million in her ESOP account. I mean, that is life-changing money from a job that, in any other company, might offer little more than a paycheck. Now, to really see how powerful this is, look at this comparison. Kathy had a twin sister who worked for a conventional company for a similar amount of time. Her sister's total retirement savings? About $30,000. This chart just says it all, doesn't it? It's the difference between just earning a wage and actually owning a piece of the value that you help create every single day. Kathy's story is incredible for sure, but it's not a fluke. The data actually shows that employee-owned companies aren't just better for workers, they seem to be better businesses, period. So let's run through the numbers. First up, on average, employees at these companies have 2.2 times more in their retirement accounts than people at traditional firms. Let that sink in. More than double the financial security for retirement. Next, they're way more durable. The data shows they're 50%, that's half, less likely to go out of business. It seems like when everyone's in the same boat and has a stake in its survival, you just row harder together. And that stability means real job security, especially when things go sideways. During the massive shock of the COVID-19 pandemic, employee owners were 3 times more likely to keep their jobs. Think about that. Instead of layoffs to protect profits for distant shareholders, these companies protected their own people. And last but not least, let's talk about the bottom line. When employees are owners, they're just more invested, more engaged. The result? A documented productivity boost of, on average, 2.4%. It's a win-win. So, you take all this evidence together, more resilient companies, better outcomes for workers, higher productivity, and it starts to make you wonder, maybe this isn't about replacing capitalism, but about finding a better version of it, what some people are calling shared capitalism. Which leads to the obvious question, right? If this model is so great, why isn't every company doing it? And, well, the reality is there are some serious hurdles. ESOPs are legally and financially pretty complicated to set up. Companies also have to plan really carefully to have enough cash to buy back shares from employees when they retire. And maybe the biggest barrier is that traditional banks just aren't familiar with these models, so they're often reluctant to provide the financing to make it happen. And so that brings us right back to the beginning, but with a lot more to think about. We've seen the evidence that this model can create more stable companies, better jobs, and a much more equitable way to share the wealth. So the question I want to leave you with is this. If it works, and it seems to work really well, what does it say about our current system that this is still the exception and not the rule?